Good morning and welcome to the boat shop. Today is the 24th of July of 2024. And I'm going to do things a little bit differently. And I have been to a certain extent here lately. I've been shooting clips throughout the week and then posting them and then finishing it off with an update on the day that I put the videos out, which is what I'm going to do here again today. I've shot a few clips throughout the week, so we're going to show those first, and then I'll come back and we'll finish things off with a little update from today. I've got a tool here I wanted to show you that I don't think I've showed you before. This is a fabric cutter. Well, it can be used to cut a lot of things. I was watching another channel the other day, and they showed a similar type of cutter on their channel, and they were just so thrilled with it. And I have to admit, I am too. And this thing really works quite well. It's a rotary cutter, but it's got like 5 different speeds. But yeah, they're not cheap, but I think I bought this one from Beaver, and it was like half price of a really popular company that sells not glass cloth, but they sell other sewing materials and such. It's exact same one, exact same accessories, exact same tool. And this from Beaver was half the price. But anyway, it's got a self-sharpening doohickey here, a little stone you can put some pressure on and resharpen the blade. It comes with an extra blade. It comes with an extra battery and the charger. And I think it was like 160 bucks. So yeah, that's not cheap, but compared to how easy it is to use, and I'll show you here in just a second how easy it is to use. And it's got wheels on the base, so if you've got a flat surface, you can just lay it on the surface and away you go. And it's just that easy to cut something. And it'll cut. I've heard of people cutting oops, didn't quite get this corner all the way done. I've heard of people cutting steel hardware cloth with it. I can't imagine that would be a real good use for it, but it evidently does the trick. So I've had this for quite a while now, and that's what I've been using to cut my fabric. So if you've got a job where you've got a lot of fabric that you're cutting, you might want to look into one of these. They really do make life easier and make cutting this fabric simple. If you're using scissors to do this, which you certainly can do, they work, but my goodness, you'll be sharpening your scissors or buying new ones quite frequently. Okay, a couple things I wanted to bring up while I was thinking about it here. I was talking about the bolts I was going to use, debating whether I should use stainless steel bolts, lag bolts, or galvanized in here. I think what I'm going to do is use the galvanized steel bolts in the cutlass bearing housing, and then I'll use inside. I'll probably use the stainless steel ones. And somebody asked the question, why not just use bronze? Well, yeah, you could. And I thought about it, and I looked at them, and they were $70-some each bolt, 70-some bucks. So yeah, and then there's not a whole lot of sense in switching when designer called for this boat to be galvanized steel fixed, and that's what I've gone with. And I've gone with steel on pretty much all the fixings. So there isn't a whole lot of sense in spending an extra, $300 on lag bolts here when the rest of the bolt isn't that way. And you can buy new galvanized steel lag bolts for a few bucks, and redo them every 5 years if you want. Another thing is, I was trying to get these all drilled out here and ready for installation, and the one drill bit that I ordered, yes, I managed to break. And I tried using my drill press, but my drill press really isn't big enough for this type of thing, and so I went in to use the milling machine, and I put a drill chuck in there. And the problem there is when you put the drill chuck on the milling machine, you don't have enough. I can't get the part, and the part's fairly long, so I can't get the part low enough. I can't put it in a vise. I've got a circular vise and a square jaw vise, but I can't get them in either one, and then get the drill bit in the chuck and have enough room to drill it out. So the first time I did it, I managed to get some blocks under there and get some clamps on there. And the second time I didn't do a real good job getting it clamped in there, and it was a little bit too loose, not quite tight enough. And of course this bronze really bites when these drill bits hit it, and it hit it and it twisted and pulled my clamps loose, and I broke the drill bit. So I've ordered 3 more drill bits, a set of 3 of these, so hopefully that'll get me through the second one. So that's the deal why we aren't installing this just yet, or these 2 bearing housings just yet. And I've been talking about trying to figure out a way of getting these seams ground down just a little bit, so I can put some filler in there and then put some tape over it, some thickened epoxy filler, and then put some tape over it, and get her all, finished off. And 2 things I found that work, and what I did here was I used, and I don't know why I didn't think of this a little sooner. This little tool is really highly effective, and I've used it on a lot of different places in the boat. But this is kind of a rasp bit. These are carbide chunks fixed to the little tool here, and they're very, very aggressive, and you can buy them in different grits, but this works really quite well and quite quickly to grind this down, and that would work just fine provided we've got the 2 pieces of plywood where they meet here are on the same level. That would work just absolutely fine. Gives me a little bit of width there, gives me a nice rough area for the epoxy to grab to, and then routes it out enough to get any of the old glue underneath out. That works fine, and I might use that on some of the boat. But the other thing I found that works quite well, and I did that over here on the other side, was I just used an angle grinder with a flap disc on it, and then hold it at a bit of an angle so you're not laying the whole disc up against the side of the boat. And where did I use that? Here, I guess. And here is the angle grinder with the flap disc on it coming across here. And the nice thing about that is, and again, you hold it at a little bit of an angle so it kind of digs in a little bit, as opposed to laying it flat where it would, take a larger area out. This is about what I was looking for, getting something about 1 inch wide or whatever. And what it also does then is, if these are off a little bit, if these are offset, not perfect a little bit, it gives me a little bit of an area where it's, so I can feather it, so to speak, to make a smooth transition between the 2 pieces. But yeah, either one of these 2 are going to work just fine. Not really having any issues there at all. Another thing that I haven't mentioned in a while is, the exhaust system. I was working on that, and I've been putting the parts together for that. And the reason I haven't been working on the exhaust system is because I had some more tube pipe ordered, hose ordered, exhaust hose ordered, and it's been on back order for 6 weeks or whatever now. And I finally just the other day asked them to cancel the order and refund my money, because it just wasn't coming. And here's that tube where I accidentally notched out a little bit, and I just filled this with some thickened epoxy, And now we'll just sand that back down, and it'll be as good as new. So there's that part. So now, yeah, now I need to order some more wet exhaust hose. Another thing I've been getting ready to do is here under the boat, I need to get this joint here filled with thickened epoxy and a little bit of a fillet on there, and then put some fiberglass over this joint. And I really would like to use 1708 here. Get this filled and filleted, and then put some 1708. I cut some strips of 6-inch wide 1708 cloth here. This is the heavy stuff. We'll see if I can get that up in there. Now, if that's going to stay on its own. I don't know how well epoxy, if it's sticky enough for it to hold in place, or if I'm going to have to do something different. I mean, I could just use a bunch of layers of 10 ounce. I think that would stick up there pretty well. Probably a lot easier. But we'll see how this 1708 goes. I'd like to use it if possible. It'll give me a little bit faster build. And then I ordered some peel ply too. So we can put some peel ply, cut some strips of peel ply and put those on here. Because when you, right here, it's not bad at all. But when you get under the boat here, it's just a royal pain to work down here. There's just no good angle to get at things. You got to kind of sit half under the boat and got to kind of duck down then and reach up. And you can't get a chair underneath there. You can't really sit or lay on the concrete on the floor. You working on these cradle beams here is your best bet, but that doesn't always work. It's just a pain to work under there. So we're giving this a start here to see how this works, and see if I can get that 1708 up under there, and then put some peel ply on it, so we don't have to do a lot of sanding. Is the whole point. The less time I have to spend crawling around down underneath there doing things, the happier I'm gonna be. So that's the peel ply idea. That stuff should be here next week. And I ordered more epoxy again too, because I'm getting low on epoxy. And we're down to 1 sheet, I think, of plywood. Yeah, 1 sheet of plywood left too. So Monday I was going to do a run to get plywood also. So I'm actually getting these sheets done quicker, because I'm not having to wait 2 days for these to cure, for the epoxy to cure now. Generally speaking, 24 hours has been adequate. I've been able to get these cleaned up and sanded after 24, 30 hours, something like that. But those are some of the things I've been working on. And my knee that was giving me problems the other day, it's almost fully back to okay again. I think what happened with my knee was when I go up on the boat, I had skinned my knee when I was working, my left knee, when I was working up there, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, whatever that was. I had skinned it, and so I had an open wound there, basically. And so I was always planting my right knee on the new deck up here, and then moving on that right knee, and then twisting. So I'd come up here and put a knee down, and if I was going back there, I'd spin, and I think that patella tendon just got munched between me and the plywood too many times, and it irritated it. So I was worried it was going to be something that was long term, but it turns out I think it was just a short term little injury there. So we're good to go in that respect. My back is doing better. My shoulder pulled something in my shoulder last week too, and that's doing better. So yeah, we're surviving. We're getting there. But that's just a few things I wanted to talk about while I was thinking about it, because I seem to forget about these things from time to time. So this is kind of a midweek update again, and I'll give you another update before I publish my video on Wednesday. Hello, Archie. What do you say, buddy? Huh? What do you say? That's a good dog. All right, so I did a little experiment here. I put a piece of 1708 up. Yeah, and it seems to have worked. So what I did here was I mixed up a small batch of epoxy, and note to self, how much did I mix up? I used the pint-sized container. I used the 5 marks, which is about 11 ounces. And it was a bit too much. I had plenty left over there and plenty left over there. So we could probably get by going one mixing set lower to the 4 ratio. Anyway, so what I did was I mixed up a batch. I kept some for brushing on the cloth, and then I mixed some up thickened. And I put the thinned, or the regular, just unthickened epoxy on first, and then what do we got going here? Do we have a little non-adhesion right there? Yeah, I'd have to fix that little spot there. Looks like it's either pulling away or it didn't stick real well. But anyway, so I put the epoxy on, and then I put a fillet of thickened epoxy in there, and I just used the stir stick radius here for my fillet, and it made a nice little fillet in there. And that worked quite well. And then I cut some plastic sheets out about the size of my 1708 cloth, a little bigger than them, and I laid up, or put the fiber, or the epoxy onto the fiberglass cloth on this piece of plastic. Wasn't sure if I wanted to carry the plastic up there and kind of try to lay it on there on the piece of plastic. That's not what I did. I peeled it off the plastic and put it up there, and that worked fine. So yeah, maybe if I was using 10-ounce cloth, maybe it would be easier to just yeah, take it over there on the plastic, but we'll see. But this worked all right, better than I thought it would, and it seems to be sticking in place. So I was a little concerned about that. I know when I built the other boat, I had issues with even just on the sides of the hull, the glass cloth would want to slide down the side of the hull when it was all lubed up with epoxy. So I was a little concerned about this, but this is actually probably a rougher surface. I roughed these surfaces up. Last night I went and sanded these surfaces to get them nice and rough, so the epoxy would get a good bite in there. Of course, I don't have the peel ply yet. I was planning on putting peel ply over there, but yeah, when that comes in this week. But I wanted to get this tested out first, is what I wanted to do. I wanted to see if this was even going to work, and it looks like it's going to work just fine. So yeah, mission accomplished, success. There's another aspect, aspect of this that I wanted to put in this fiberglass cloth on, that I wanted to mention, and I don't think I've mentioned it before. But after you put the first layer of epoxy on the fiberglass cloth and the second layer of epoxy, then you go over it with a fin roller to work out all the bubbles. A fin roller is one of these guys right here. Now, that does a real nice job of getting the glass cloth laid flat against the plywood. But what it does do is it leaves all these little bubbles. And you really want to kind of get rid of those. So, what works quite well is a heat gun. And I'll try to show that here. You see those bubbles just popping away as you go over it with the heat gun. See the bubbles there? Heat gun, bubbles are gone. Bubbles just go away like magic. Some people use a torch to do this, which I'm sure, yeah, works fine too, but I don't know if there's any benefits to using a torch. But I've got a little heat gun, so I just use that. Okay, and here we go. Today is Wednesday, the end of my work week, so to speak. And here is the finished product of that test I did with the fillet here and this 1708 fiberglass cloth on this joint. And it looks pretty good. I don't know if you remember back when I shot the video earlier, I had a little bit of a spot where it wasn't adhered real well. And I just went over that with the fin roller, and it adhered just fine. So yeah, this is gonna work all right. Now, moving along the boat, gosh, I'm not even sure exactly where I left you on last week's video, but I think I've probably got 2 pieces in. So as you can see here, we're rapidly closing in on being done with being done with this plywood on the side of the boat. I mean, there's still a lot of work to do to, you know, fill and tape and sand and grind and whatnot, but we're certainly getting there. And I got the next piece ready to go, which goes in here. I did change this thing a little bit too from the past. I used to have a little spacer block in there, but then of course when you slid the plywood in there, it didn't necessarily land on the previous piece of plywood underneath it here. So I just made a piece of plywood here and put a taper on it so that when you slip these in there, they push up into place. Makes it a little more difficult to get it lined up this way, but I generally use a mallet, a dead blow hammer or something like that to tap the plywood into position then. But we've only got 2 pieces left to go here. And this piece here is a relatively small one. And this piece here is in process. So next week's video we're going to be done. By the time we get to next week's video, this plywood's going to be on the boat, and boy is that going to be nice to be done with that. I forget what it was, 9 months or something like that. It wound up taking me way, way longer than I ever anticipated it would take. Now, putting the plywood on like this, putting the fiberglass cloth on first, was a suggestion George Bueller had in his book. And he had never done this. He'd never actually finished a boat this way, but he'd watched other people do it. And he decided, watching people try to put fiberglass cloth on overhead, you know, on the bottom of the boat, that it would be easier to do it this way. And he might be right. It might be easier doing it this way, but it's certainly way more time consuming. You know, were I to do this again, I probably would have done the bottom of the boat this way, but I think I would have just put plywood up on the sides of the boat and then put glass cloth on the sides of the boat. I think that would have been much, much faster. Because if you're just putting plywood up, man, you could slap that stuff up, you know, quite quickly. And then coming back and putting the glass cloth on, yeah, it's going to be a pain, but I still think it would be faster than doing it the way I did and spending 9 months putting all the fiberglass on first, and then putting these pieces on, and then you still got to go back over and finish them. Where if you just had plywood on the surface, you could lather some thickened epoxy in between the seams and the screw holes, and put your glass cloth on, and away you go. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it took longer to do it this way. Now maybe if a guy had more room where you could lay out more sheets of plywood, and you know, maybe you should work on both sides at the same time. I don't know. But I do know that this was a very, very long process, and it's going to be very, very nice to have it done. Another thing I've been up to, if you remember the battery box cover that I made here a while ago, I finally pulled that out and got a coat of paint on it. It needs it needs another coat or two of paint and whatnot, but there's my battery box cover. Another thing I was doing last night, I decided it's probably time to think about a bow thruster. And so I was looking at bow thrusters last night again, and I was looking at Lumar's bow thrusters, and it's 5.4 horsepower. Is it the 4,000? I don't remember what it was, but anyway, it wasn't. You know, it was kind of on the margin of being big enough for a boat this size, but I think you know If you're in a lot of wind or a lot of current, yeah, then you need a lot more powerful bow thruster. But 5.4 horsepower, that's like taking a small dinghy and pushing on the side of the boat. Should be adequate under most conditions. I mean, if you're trying to get in somewhere where it's that windy or that much current, maybe either A, shouldn't, or B, get somebody out in the water with a dinghy or something to help you, to help push you in. But yeah, so I've been debating on where to go with the bow thruster, and I had these out to kind of give me an idea of some alignment. Now they want you to be 1 caliper or 1 diameter of the opening, and it's like an 8-inch opening. So the water line's below the water line. So the water line is, you know, right about in here. So you're talking, if you got an 8-inch, you're talking down in here. And I have to fit this in between. I've got some stringers in there. I want to fit it in between the stringers. I really don't want to cut a stringer out to go in with that. So, and then as to where it goes, 4 feet, or station 4 here, is going to be the closest, you know, right behind station 4 is the closest I could go. So, I don't know. It would be a little more practical to put it the next station back. So here you can see, there's station 4 would be right here, and then station 6 is right here. That's station 6. So it would be more practical to put it back here. You're a little deeper in the water, got a little more room to work, and yeah, so I don't know. But the farther forward the bow thruster is, the more effective it is, the more leverage it has. So yeah, I don't know. I'm afraid if it goes up here, it's the floorboards in this forward cabin, it's gonna, or the sole boards, it's gonna come above those, more than likely. And of course it's a little narrower place to work. Yeah, I don't know. I need to get somebody out here and do some measurements, I think. Get somebody to work on either side there, and we can kind of hold these up and get some measurements, because I wanted to get the tunnel ordered, if nothing else right now. If I order the tunnel, that way I can get that incorporated into the hull before I start you know, doing any finishing work here, which only makes sense to get that done now. Yeah, I don't know. Trying to put it up here, things are going to get awful tight. I think probably it would be better back down here. Like, it gives me a little more real estate to work with too. Yeah, we'll see about that. But that's something else I'm considering or thinking about now. Like, there's a lot of things when you're building a boat you have to think about, and they have to, in some cases, play out in a certain order. So yeah, we try to keep those things in mind, although we don't always succeed at that. That's the goal. So anyway, that's what I've been up to the last week, and I'll leave it there, and I will see you again next week.